Everyone has imagined at one point in their lives how it would be like if they could see the future. Well, Amano Yukiteru, a loner who spends his time writing a diary, had that wish granted. He even has a beautiful girl madly in love with him named Yuno Gasai. But this is just the start of his less than ideal life, since he gets thrusted into a survival game with other holders of the future diary, bent on killing each other. He may have thought it was lucky that Yuno is there to protect him, but the only bad part is that she may just be a bit unhinged. Want to know how he deals with murderers and psychotic Sandra? Well then, stay tuned. Amano Yukiteru spends his time writing a diary on his phone as a hobby since he's a loner. He goes home and talks about his diary with his imaginary friends, Murumuru and Deus Ex Machina, the king of space and time. Seeing his loneliness, Deus says that he'll give him a future, but Yukiteru dismisses his imagination and goes to sleep. In the backdrop, there's a murderer at large. The next day, Yukiteru finds multiple entries in his diary for the current day. He initially dismisses them thinking he wrote them in his sleep, but soon he realizes that the diary is accurately predicting the future when he sees the thing written happen around him. In his imaginary world, Deus confirms the diary's power, but Yukiteru panics and says that the god shouldn't have the power to do this since he just imagined him. Deus states that it is possible to exist in Yukiteru's mind due to his power as a god. Deus further says that if the diary breaks, Yukiteru's life will be forfeit. Yukiteru starts using his diary to gain an advantage in school, while a murder is being investigated by the police. While in class, Yukiteru notices Yuno, a gorgeous classmate with exceptional grades, looking at him. After class, he finds a clay model of Murumuru on Yuno's desk. A notification blares as he checks his diary to find an alarming entry. A serial killer is targeting him within the school premises, marked with the phrase, "Dead End." Right then, Yuno shows up behind him saying he knows about his power. Overwhelmed, Yukiteru flees and his diary entries continue to shift as Yuno persistently chases after him. Seeking refuge in an elevator, Yukiteru ponders the possibility of others possessing similar powers. To his surprise, Yuno catches up to him. Although he fears her intentions, she unexpectedly kisses him and tells him that the real threat is underneath them, the third diary holder. Yuno shares her diary ability to foretell Yukiteru's actions and emotions, referring to it as a future diary of love. Yukiteru becomes uneasy at the level of stalking, but then he also learns that he's now a part of a survival game where diary owners seek to murder each other. Yuno then guides Yukiteru to the roof and plans to have him destroy the killer's diary with his darts, since running away isn't an option. The two hide as the killer reaches the rooftop. The masked man opens his diary to look for their whereabouts, and Yuno uses the opportunity to rush him. With the man distracted, Yukiteru uses the moment to pierce his diary with a dart. The man suddenly warps and vanishes out of existence. Later on, Yukiteru asks Deus why others have the diary. Deus transports Yukiteru's consciousness to a veiled gathering with other diary holders. Deus explains to everyone that their future diaries create entries up to 90 days ahead, with entries adapting based on their actions and those of other users in order to shape the future. The objective of the game is to locate and eliminate each other, while the ultimate survivor ascends to Deus's throne as the god of time and space. Yukiteru is titled the first and becomes a prime target for everyone. The meeting is adjourned, but Yuno tells Yukiteru she'll protect him. Yukiteru spends the next day fearing his current situation with 10 diary holders after him. After class, Yukiteru approaches Yuno, but she dismisses him and leaves for PE class. Another girl approaches the room asking for Hiyama Takao, the homeroom teacher. She suspiciously engages Yukiteru, talking about his recent grades, and how the homeroom teacher disappears right as the killer was proclaimed dead. She then suddenly reveals the teacher had the murder future diary. As Yukiteru processes this, an entry flashes on his phone, marking a dead end. Just then, Yuno intervenes, shoving the girl aside. The girl introduces herself as the 9th diary holder, Yuryu Minene, just before leaping into the window of the school. The building suddenly erupts into a series of explosions. Yuno comforts Yukiteru, stating that she'll definitely kill Minene before his dead end in 3 hours. Yukiteru asks her to protect him, even though he's conflicted. Using a speaker, Minene announces to the school that she has placed some sensor bombs throughout the school and the students should stay put. On the other side of the building, Yukiteru and Yuno use their diaries to avoid the bombs Minene is setting off. After a close encounter with a bomb, the two realize that since Yukiteru's diary gives information on everything but himself, they can use Yuno's diary to fill in the gap and make their information perfectly complete. The situation gets to Yukiteru and confides in Yuno, stating that he picked up being an observer over making relations with others to avoid getting hurt. Seeing this, Yuno comforts him and suggests that the two head to their classmates, who should be their friends, and help them. Meanwhile, police have surrounded the area, but the chief tells the snipers to stand down. He's also a diary holder and knows that killing Minene would cause all the bombs to explode. Yukiteru decides to tell his classmates about the diary's power, but the two get pinned as soon as they reach them. Turns out Minene told everyone to go after the two and bring them to her if they wanted to live. Yukiteru is dragged outside to face Minene and his impending demise. At the same time, Yuno, who was held in the classroom, escapes and runs across the halls, causing the sensor bombs to explode, forsaking the students to save Yukiteru. In the minefield-filled courtyard, the fourth diary holder appears next to Yukiteru, pointing a gun at Minene. He tells him that she's after him since he wields the investigation diary, which foretells crimes around him. He doesn't intend to participate in the survival game. Yukiteru is momentarily relieved before Minene tells the fourth to kill himself and Yukiteru, or she'll blow up the entire school. Conflicted, the fourth points his gun at Yukiteru, but Yuno suddenly jumps out of the building and knocks down Minene. Yuno, the fourth, and the students then works together to distract Minene as Yukiteru runs across mines and stabs her in the eye. Unfortunately, Minene escapes using a bike and a smoke grenade, revealing that she wields the escape diary. Yukiteru, Yuno, and the policeman agree to form an alliance after the incident. Yukiteru and Yuno go to Sakurami Amusement Park after a discussion with the policeman Kurusu Keigo. There are currently 7 unidentified diary holders. Keigo's primary target is Minene, and he intends to lure her out in the amusement park, using Yuno and Yukiteru as bait. Minene is still in hiding and dealing with her trauma of war. She intends to win the survival game. She heads out, using her diary to avoid the policeman after her. Meanwhile, Yuno and Yukiteru explore the park, going to the haunted house, and then the water park. The water park results in a few high, risky movements, and the day passes by. Yuno then proposes to go to a planetarium, but Yukiteru avoids it, choosing the Ferris wheel instead. Yukiteru finally asks Yuno why she follows him around. Yuno avoids the question and instead asks why he didn't go to the planetarium with her, even though he likes stars. Yukiteru asks if she learned that from her diary, to which he responds that he told her himself a year ago. She reminds him of the day the two were giving a survey of their dreams in class. Yuno talked to him and found out about his parents' divorce, and how he wanted to see the stars with them through a telescope. Since his parents couldn't go with him, she asked if he'd go with her, and she even told him she'd be his bride when she grew up. Yukiteru realizes that Yuno wasn't joking back then, and she leans in to kiss his forehead. Yukiteru and Yuno head back when it starts raining. They get an umbrella from a convenience store before heading to Yuno's house. Meanwhile, Keigo gets a report that Yuno and Yukiteru made it home safely from the protection detail he has around them. Meanwhile, the injured Minene is approached by a mysterious man. He tells her to come with him, saying he's here to help. Minene is taken to a cabin and given painkillers by a masked figure. He calls himself a hero of justice. The electricity is out at her house, but Yuno goes to peel an apple for Yukiteru in the kitchen. He himself gets up to find the bathroom, but instead stumbles on a sealed room. In the cabin, Minene falls to the floor, drugged by the masked man. He leans over her and snaps her fingers, turning her phone into a piece of wood before gouging her a ruined eye. All the diary holders suddenly get an entry in their diary as Yukiteru opens the door to the sealed room. He finds a body inside, and Deuce's palace goes into turmoil, twisting casually. He comments that the future will greatly change from this. Yuno appears behind Yukiteru, but he runs away to his house and locks himself inside. Yuno follows him to his apartment to ominously say goodnight through the letterbox. Yukiteru hides in his room, unable to make sense of the body he found in Yuno's house. He realizes that he's completely monitored when he's receiving a text from Yuno as he's about to contact Keigo. The next day, Keigo pays Yukiteru a visit, but he comes along with Yuno, so Yukiteru can't tell him anything. Keigo tells the two that Minene was caught by a religious group called Omekata Kyo and intends to check the shrine to confirm. During this time, Yukiteru is worried that Yuno will murder him if he tells anyone what he found in her house. After Keigo talks to some followers, the three are taken to meet Omekata priestess Kasugano Tsubaki, who is kept in a large cage. Tsubaki states that she has poor vision before revealing that she is the 6th diary holder. Her diary is called the Clairvoyance Diary, which creates entries of what her followers can see. She then states that she doesn't intend to be a god, but wants to exchange Minene, who she has captured, in exchange for Yukiteru's help in getting rid of the dead-end flag her diary shows. Yukiteru agrees to help her, but when they're alone, Tsubaki tells him not to trust Yuno. Yuno meanwhile learns about her diary that Tsubaki is bad-mouthing her. Suddenly, flames begin raging inside Tsubaki's cage. Her followers come to put out the fire, but chaos ensues, and they instead start killing each other. Yukiteru tries to save Tsubaki, but Yuno stops him, saying he'll be in grave danger. Yukiteru doesn't listen, saying Yuno intends to kill him before saying that he can't trust her. He runs towards Tsubaki, leaving Yuno in tears. Yukiteru enters the cage just as Keigo activates the water sprinklers. Tsubaki screams at her followers, and they suddenly leave their trance. Meanwhile, Yuno believes that Tsubaki must have said something to turn Yukiteru against her. Tsubaki tells Yukiteru that someone was controlling her followers. In the underground prison, Minene is locked in a cage by her captor. He seems to be behind all the chaos. Yukiteru tries to call Keigo but is unable to reach him while Tsubaki checks her diary to see where the enemy is. Multiple entries start popping up regarding suspicious people, leading Tsubaki and Yukiteru to believe they've been swarmed. Yukiteru tells Yuno entering the cage, but asks her to wait outside, suspecting something is wrong. Meanwhile, the suspicious man starts putting on an over-the-top costume. Yukiteru and Tsubaki step out of the cage and Yuno threatens Tsubaki with an axe. Tsubaki, before her diary entry changes, and so does Yukiteru's, now showing a dead end. In the prison, Minene realizes that the man is the 12th diary holder. He intends to destroy Omekata to exercise justice, but Minene tells him that Yuno, the psychopath, wouldn't let him. In the main area, Yuno starts killing the corpses as they suddenly start coming alive. Yuno asks Yukiteru to choose her and live, or choose Tsubaki and be killed. Tsubaki remembers the traumatic childhood she had after her parents died, kept in a cage and physically abused by the followers of the religious group her parents had made as a sort of initiation ceremony. Her only source of comfort was her mother's ball, but she lost that as well. Yuno rushes out with Yukiteru and Tsubaki. Yukiteru finally gets through to Keigo, who tells him to run to the gate while he searches for Minene. Meanwhile, Minene learns that the 12th Justice Diary is a voice recorder that can also hypnotize people. The 12th throws Minene the keys to her shackles, telling her to escape, while he deals with Omekata using her bombs. When Tsubaki realizes that her followers are now back to normal, she stops the three, intent on standing against the enemy. Yuno becomes confrontational, but Yukiteru suddenly gets a call from Keigo, who tells him that the 12th is coming toward them with a miniature bomb. Right then, Yuno notices the 5 doppelgangers of the 12th. The 12th tells Yukiteru that he's been fooled by Tsubaki before mentioning the immortality of the Omekata group. He tells Yukiteru to leave Tsubaki unless he wants to get blown up by a bomb inside one of his 5 doppelgangers. Since the 12th had a dead-end flag on him, he intends to take Tsubaki along with him. The doppelgangers then rush towards the three. Yuno intervenes using a clever trick with a rock to find and kill the real one. She collapses to her knees as Yukiteru comes to her. She seems to have been in a bad condition. The gates suddenly start closing and Tsubaki's followers bind the two. Tsubaki reveals that she intends to get rid of the diary holder before she kisses him, just to anger Yuno. Right after, she checks if the dead-end flag is still active and finds that it is. Yuno breaks free and kills a few followers before cutting off Tsubaki's hand. She pushes Yukiteru off the ledge and tells him to run as she collapses on the ground. Minene and Keigo look for a roof and sees what's been happening. Keigo has Minene handcuffed to him as they watch from the roof. He intends to make a deal. Tsubaki gets her hand treated by her followers as she reveals her intent to use Yuno as bait. She wants to erase the entire world once she becomes God. Meanwhile, Yukiteru hides under a building with Yuno's diary. He goes through it and learns that Yuno is in love with him. He also finds a ball while hiding. Tsubaki then makes an announcement that Yuno will be defiled if Yukiteru doesn't reveal himself. Hearing this, Yukiteru runs across the courtyard to where Yuno is, reaching her right before the followers can abuse her. Yukiteru realizes the disadvantage surrounded by so many followers, but states that he'll change the future with Yuno. Yukiteru then throws Tsubaki's cherished ball in the air, distracting the followers long enough to get Yukiteru puncture Tsubaki's diary with the dart. She vanishes out of existence. Yukiteru apologizes to Yuno for being late before taking her to safety. He gives her a kiss in the police car. Minene is released and Keigo has exchanged emails with her for a plan that hasn't been revealed. Yuno breaks into Yukiteru's house as he's out to receive his mother. Yukiteru Ria from the train station. The mother and son have a light-hearted conversation during the ride back home. As they enter the gate, Ria notices that the glass window is broken. Yukiteru looks at his diary and realizes Yuno is there. He runs to his room and finds her cleaning everything up since she wanted his mother's blessing. She even has food made on the table. Yukiteru tries to hide Yuno in the closet, but after an embarrassing turn of events, Yukiteru is unable to keep Yuno from meeting his mother. Later at night, Yuno introduces herself before bringing Ria the food she made. Ria hits it off with Yuno and starts talking about marriage. Yukiteru has to reluctantly deal with all of this. 4 days ago after the Omekata incident, Minene got a fake eye from a doctor. It's also revealed that the Omekata incident was officially covered up as a mass suicide by the authorities. Ria shows Yukiteru's childhood pictures to Yuno, embarrassing him thoroughly before telling the two that she's been given 3 days off to take care of her colleague's son, after the colleague died in the Omekata incident. She then tells Yuno to stay over for the night in Yukiteru's room. Yuno happily agrees and takes a shower before getting into bed. At night, Yuno asks Yukiteru why he isn't coming to her bed. He states that he isn't in love with her, so he can't. Yuno then shows him an entry in her diary that says that the two will become one on the 28th of July. Yukiteru argues that he may change the future, but Yuno tells him he can do whatever he likes, but she won't let him change the happy ending. Embarrassed, Yukiteru hides under his covers. He remembers the time he spent with Yuno, but tries to push the thoughts out of his head. Later at night, Yuno feels thankful that she and Yukiteru's mother got along, since she'd have to use her tools on her otherwise. In the morning, Ria arrives with the 5-year-old Hyojo Reisuke and introduces him to Yukiteru and Yuno. Later on in the living room, Reisuke makes a sketch of Yuno while Yukiteru realizes that his parents may have been killed by her. Reisuke then stands up to give the sketch to Yuno, but he trips with scissors in his hands and falls on her. Thankfully, she uses a pillow to save herself from being stabbed. Worried, Ria tells Reisuke to put away the scissors, and Reisuke excuses himself to the bathroom, remarking that Yuno seemed to be a tough one, implying ulterior motives. What do you think of the story? Let's talk about it in the comments section below. As always, a like, subscribe, and comment will be much appreciated. Well then, with that said, we'll see you guys in our next recap. Make sure to give us a heads up if you want us to do a part 2.